Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 1 of Showtime's Yellowjackets, entitled Friends, Romans, Countrymen. I'm excited to be back to talk about Yellowjackets. Yellowjackets was the best performing show on my channel for, I think, like late 2021, early 2022, which is when the show ran. So I'm really excited. Hopefully these videos will perform just as well, if not better. I'm a little concerned just because, like, when I started talking about Yellowjackets, when it came out in 2021, nobody knew about it. Now everybody knows about it. So there's going to be a whole lot more competition for me out there. But hopefully, since I've already got, I think, like 11 Yellowjackets videos out there that have already performed fairly well, hopefully the YouTube algorithm will be kind to me. But even if it's not, I'm still going to be here with you guys for all 10 episodes. And for those of you who may have rocked with me during Season 1, welcome back. And now let's talk about Season 2, Episode 1. And I want to start with the title because Friends, Romans, Countrymen. I'm like, what does that have to do with this episode? I didn't see anything in this episode having to do with no friends, no Romans, and no countrymen. What the fuck, right? So I go to Google just the phrase, like, because I don't want it to mix in with the episode. I just type out Friends, Romans, Countrymen into Google and hit enter. And it shows me, it's like, oh, this is the opening line from a speech within Julius Caesar. And I'm like, still, what the fuck does this have to do with this episode? And I'm about to give up. And I'm like, well, let me see what the fucking speech in Julius Caesar says. Mind you, I'm not a Shakespeare guy, you guys. You know, I'm sure some of you who are longtime fans of this channel probably have a fairly decent amount of respect for my intellect. I ain't read no fucking Shakespeare, so I know nothing about this shit. I just know that Julius Caesar is a Shakespeare. It's a Shakespeare play. But I start reading it. Let me tell you guys what the first line says. And watching the end, if you watch to the end of the episode, you're going to laugh when I finish the first line, and you're going to understand why they named it this. It's kind of slick, it's kind of funny, and I thought it was pretty cool. But this speech opens with, Friends, Romans, Countrymen, lend me your ears. Like, that's gotta be why they did it, right? Because Shauna ate the ear at the end. Like, that's gotta be, like, that's actually really clever to take that line, remove the lend me your ears part, make that the episode title, and have a goofy motherfucker like me. How many people are gonna look into that and get that reference? Nobody. Me and probably like 5 other people. And now you guys. But yeah, I thought that was actually a really clever episode title for the premiere. So let's get to talking about the premiere because there's kind of a lot to cover here. I thought this was a solid premiere that had a lot of what I love about Yellowjackets, but the premiere also had some issues that kind of made me feel like maybe the writers might have had issues just figuring out how to start the season. And, you know, I had concerns about that too because, you know, the show became a phenomenon really fucking fast. It instantly got renewed, and they've got this second season out pretty quick. It's only been about a year and 2 months since the Season 1 finale, which, of course, that feels like a long time, but when it comes to TV, I mean, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, a year and 2 months ain't shit in between seasons. So The year and 2 months isn't really all that long of a time. And I'm sure they weren't expecting to just like, get renewed like that and have to come up with a second season so fast. And I feel like starting out this episode, like maybe that first 20 minutes or so, I was seeing a lot of stuff that I'm just like, just kind of less stuff that I'm just kind of like, I don't really like that. But once the episode got going, it felt like we were right back in our comfort zone with the show we're familiar with, the characters we're familiar with, and a lot of my issues, admittedly, are a bit nitpicky, but I mean, that's what I'm here for, right? I'm not just gonna sit here and just stroke the show off the whole time. You don't need anybody on YouTube to go in front of a show and just praise every fucking episode. Like, I'm gonna be honest, at times that means I'm gonna have to be critical. So yeah, the little nitpicks are gonna come up. But admittedly, everything that I have to say that's a criticism of this episode, I would say is a nitpick except for one thing. So let's get started. The premiere caught us up with what's been going on with both versions of the team since the season 1 finale, the wilderness version and the adult version. But it also set up new central mysteries for season 2 as well for us to theorize about as we move through the season. I'm going to save the new mysteries. I'm going to save for like the last, I don't know how long it's going to be, probably like the last couple of minutes. So having said that, let's start by talking about what our favorite ladies have been up to. So I'm going to break this down by character, as I believe I did that last season as well. It's been a year. I don't know what the fuck I did, but I know you guys liked it, so hopefully you'll like it. Hopefully you'll like this too. But I'm going to start with Van and Taisa. They're still tied together, both figuratively and now literally in this episode, to presumably help Taisa's sleepwalking and sleep dirt eating. And one night in the middle of the night, we see Taisa get inexplicably horny, and we come to find out that not only does she sleep dirt eat, but she also apparently sleep fucks, and also kinky shit too. Like, she's like biting Van's lip and shit, but she bites Van's lip, she draws blood, and that wakes them both up. And Van uses the blood to write "I love you" on her arm, and I guess that's about as romantic as you can get in like an upstairs cobweb-filled attic surrounded by witchcraft and cannibalism. That's probably the most romantic a profession of love's gonna get. But we don't even see adult Van in this episode, though we are confirmed to be getting an adult Van in this season. But we do see adult Taisa. It's the next day after the election that we saw at the end of season 1, where she won a Senate seat. And we see her buying Sammy a new dog because, I mean, you remember what happened to the first one. And she goes to pick him up from school. And Simone arrives. I think they're still married, but obviously they're separated. And completely spazzes. Like, yo, get the fuck away from him. All this kind of shit, right? Even I'm like, why is she so turned up? But apparently she found Taisa's... Well, I can't say apparently. We saw her find it. And this is one of the things that I found disorienting. I'm going to get into this a little bit. There's a little bit later. There's a lot of stuff in this episode I found disorienting. But the fact that this scene, it takes a minute to come to this understanding, but this scene is essentially like the next day after the season 1 finale. And she tells Taisa she found her little Satan worshiping hidey hole in the basement, and she's like, you need to quit politics and find help. You're never going to see Sammy again. Taisa later then finds her own hidey hole later while she's like completely lucid. And she commits to the new dog that she's going to do better. And I'm in my notes, I'm like, maybe you send that to Simone in a text. Like, the dog don't care, but whatever, Taisa. I think that's all I really have about Taisa for this episode. But we'll see. My notes are, I'm not going to say all over the place. I spent a lot of time on these notes to get it organized in a way that would allow me to get this video out smoothly and try to make it so it's not like 45 minutes long. But Taisa might come up later. Moving on to Lottie. This is going to be the biggest portion of this video. And speaking of the witchcraft and cannibalism that I mentioned earlier, Lottie's apparently heavily into witchcraft now. Like, she's not just like dibbling and dabbling. Like, she's like making potions and the blood teas and shit, which for me, it felt like a pretty extreme jump in her behavior, as well as Natalie and Travis apparently willingly drinking her little blood tea. And one of the things that, I said at the top that I felt like the writers struggled with figuring out how to start this season. This was a very disorienting scene as well early on, because it's important to note that we didn't even know it was 2 months later at this point. So to see Lottie full on into witchcraft, and Travis and Natalie at least willing to go along with it, though Natalie does express doubt. It was a little weird, and I want to pose a question to you guys. Did anyone else find it disorienting that the present day storyline with like what I just mentioned with Simone picks up the next day, but the wilderness storyline picks up 2 months later? Like, that really threw me off. And that was when I say that it seemed like they struggled figuring out how they wanted to start the season. These first few scenes feel very disorienting. Like, they're all over the place. There's another moment I'm going to talk about in a minute. And it just seems like they struggled to like place everybody and to kind of make it flow cohesively. Like what I do with my notes. Like, my notes are all over the place when I write them while I'm watching the show. When I organize them to do the videos, it's very structured. And it takes me a long time to get it that way. And it feels like the show kind of struggled with getting the scenes in a way that made it just flow a little bit better. And I found myself constantly kind of like thrown off, like, wait, what's going on here? Like, if I had known it was 2 months later, I'd have been a little bit more comfortable with seeing Lottie just heavily into witchcraft like that. But starting the episode, I don't know how long it's been, and it's just like, wow, she's like full on, like Natalie even says, like, yeah, this Wicca shit. I'm like, so she's got a fucking title now? Like, she's fully into it. And I don't know, that just threw me off. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, like, I put this in my notes too, and I think this is an interesting way of putting it, or a way to make it so it's a little easier to understand. It's weird to feel like half the show is taking place, half the episode is taking place right after the events of the finale, but the other half did a time jump that we don't even understand took place until we're like damn near halfway through the episode. Like, I think it's like 20 minutes in that someone says, it's been 2 months, and I'm just like, it's been 2 months? Like, I don't know. Another thing that was disorienting, though, and it's these early scenes. In the beginning, we see a scene where all the girls are returning home. It's like 1998. And Lottie stops before getting onto the plane, and then the scene cuts into the future, where her parents are talking about like how weird she's been since she's been back. We then see a scene of her at presumably a mental hospital getting like an electroshock therapy or something, like a lobotomy or whatever. And then we see her kind of like talking down a roommate who's having some issues. Of note in this scene, we see her place her hand on the woman's chest, like right here, to kind of like calm her. We later see her do the same thing with Travis when Travis is having a panic attack. So we know that's going to come back around and have some sort of significance later. Side note, why did that make Travis's dick hard? That was really fucking random. But anyway, then we jump even farther into the future with then present day Lottie speaking to her little cult, the cult nonsense. And of note in that scene also, everyone is wearing like this lavenderish purple color, except Lottie. I think she was wearing something that was more like a yellowish, orangish. I can't quite remember. But I don't know. I'm wondering what's up with the color selection. And I'm wondering if that's going to matter later as well. But then, present day Lottie, she's saying her casual culty nonsense. And then we cut back to the plane, and she screams at the media there. Now, for me, visually, that felt like they were trying to tell me that what we saw in between her stopping at the door of the plane and her screaming at the media, what we saw in between, that visually reads like this is what caused her to scream. But that's not possible because all those scenes took place in the future. So that's that's what I mean when I say it was disorienting, and it kind of felt like they didn't really know, like they struggled to kind of like place scenes in a way that just kind of flowed better. Like, that flowed really weird to me. Like because that's how things work. When you start a scene, you stop it to flash back to provide information for what you are about to see when we go back to present day. Like, they did it in a way where what we saw in between the two plane shots did not inform on the later plane shot at all. So, like, again, it was just really weird structuring of those scenes. And I know it feels nitpicky, but I would just challenge you guys to keep in mind that everything we see on the screen should have a purpose. And what were we to take away from a jump into the future in the middle of Lottie boarding that plane? Did we learn anything about Lottie boarding? Like, do you understand more about why Lottie yelled at those people out there by seeing the scenes from the future? No, you don't. You understand why she yelled at them because of what we already know has happened to Lottie in the past, in the wilderness. So what was the point of putting those future scenes in that place? That's the only thing is, and again, I know it's nitpicky, but again, it threw me off. It took me out of it. So that's why I'm here talking about it. And I do consider both the Lottie thing and the next day versus 2 months later between the two timelines to be minor. But these are little things that, like I said, took me out of the episode. And I like I said at the top, I couldn't call myself fair or even-handed if I didn't bring those things up. Moving on to Shauna. In the wilderness, we see Shauna and Jackie talking, and then that immediately pissed me off because I was already mad about what I just said about the jumps in time and how disorienting the episode had been to this point. So I'm like, how are you going to show me a flashback with Jackie, which is something that would have happened in season 1, but we obviously didn't see happen in season 1. I don't need to see season 1 shit now. Like you could have shown me that in season 1. Like, it felt like a very unimaginative way of bringing the Jackie character or the actress who played Jackie back into the show. I'm like, it just felt weird. I'm like, I gotta see some shit that happened during a time frame that's in the past and gone that I already saw. But imagine how I felt when we learned that in reality Jackie is actually dead. And Shauna is just having conversations with her corpse, which I thought was actually, which I then went now to the opposite end of the spectrum. I was like, oh, that's really fucking cool, actually. I like how they did that. I also really like the scene where Shauna and Jackie discuss what led Shauna to having sex with Jeff. And it's played like a conversation, but since we know she's talking to Jackie's corpse by this point, we're meant to understand that this is how Shauna is coping with the guilt over what she did. And I like how she'd say something about Jackie. No, she wouldn't say something about Jackie. She'd say something and Jackie would call bullshit. And that's basically like Shauna calling bullshit on her own justification for what she did. Because it's like, you can kind of like, if you're Shauna, you could fashion up all sorts of excuses in your head to make it okay to fuck your best friend's boyfriend and all of that kind of stuff. But when you're faced with the reality deep down inside, you have to admit that you did it because you were being an asshole. And now she's dealing with that in this conversation with dead Jackie. And I thought that was kind of cool. Shauna then knocks over Jackie's body and the aforementioned ear falls off. She was getting pretty old. I had to do my Dumb and Dumber reference. And the episode ends, like I said, with Shauna later eating that ear. And now the show is finally dipped its delicious fleshy toe into cannibalism. But now I'm going to talk about a thing that I didn't like that is not minor. And I'm also not willing to forgive. Like, this is to me a very huge con of this episode, and one that I'm not gonna be like, well, I guess I'm nitpicking. Nope, I'm not nitpicking. Who the fuck were those girls in the cabin, the new ones? Like, how do you introduce new characters into a scenario where new faces are literally impossible to interject? Like, I'm sitting there like, yo, are these ghosts or some shit? Like, are these ghosts from like girls who were in the cabin before and now they're watching the living girls and watching what they're doing and having conversation with each other? Like, this is some weird Beetlejuice shit. Like, I'm coming up with all kinds of hypotheses for who these people are, because them being alive characters who are part of this team is completely implausible. So it can't be that. But then they got Misty talking to one of them, and I'm like, these girls are real? Like, and I mean, I guess it's still on the table that they could be make-believe maybe, but I don't know, it didn't play like that. And I'm like, literally my jaw dropped. Like, I'm seriously in awe that everyone involved in this show thought it was okay to introduce new characters into a scenario where new faces are entirely implausible. You gotta have gigantic fucking balls to do something that fucking stupid. Like, I hated that shit. When Misty started talking to one, I'm like, these girls are real? Like, you can't, how do you just, like, there was a whole, like, how many people did this episode how many eyes did this episode sit in front of, and no one said, you think it's fucked up to introduce new characters into this scenario? Like, that is so fucking weird and dumb, and I hated that shit, man. Like, we watched that whole goddamn first season and they still got a lot of people left. It's not like they're down to 3 people and we're like, well, fuck, we're just gonna have to force more people in. You still got like 18 fucking people on the show. You still got like 7 or 8 people who are stranded in the wilderness. Why do I need 3 or 4 new faces that completely take all credibility out of the show by sitting here expecting me to believe that these are people who have been here the whole fucking time, but I'm just now seeing them in season 2? Like, oh, that shit's unforgivable to me, dog. Like, I can't fuck with that. I don't take kindly to being insulted, and that was insulting to me. I'm sorry. Like, I know there are probably some of you guys who are like, yo, he's doing a lot right now. But like, I don't that feels very insulting to me as a viewer. Like, I'm too stupid to notice that. I'm like who the fuck are these new people when they're stranded in the fucking woods in the middle of nowhere? And the whole point of the show is how the fuck do they get home being stranded in the middle of nowhere? And they're just like, hey, here's some random new people that you didn't see before that are just here now. Like, what the fuck? It's like the show spit in my face with that shit. Anyway, present day, adult Shauna still has some of Adam's stuff, even though she told Misty that she didn't. She'd already taken care of it. She finds a key to Adam's studio, and her and Jeff go there to investigate. Somehow, Shauna and Jeff thinks this is a good time to fuck. Like, I don't know why you would think it's a good time to fuck when you're breaking into the studio of the man your wife killed, and he is still well, I don't even think people know he's dead yet. He's still just out there and missing. People are looking for him. They're probably going to presume he's dead. They're going to start looking at these studios, and you think this is a good place to have sex? Like, God, I don't know who's stupider, the characters or the people who make this show because of how stupid they think the viewers are. I could not get over I'm like, they're touching everything. There's probably going to be cum on the fucking floor. Like she's going to be sweating all over the fucking table. They're going to leave DNA everywhere. Like, this is such a shitty idea. And, oh, God. Moving on to Misty. Present day, Misty goes on Reddit to see if anyone's looking for Adam's, looking into Adam's disappearance. And we hear Elijah Wood's voice describing how he somehow got Adam's credit card. He's talking about all the different purchases, and he's running them off, and the purchases very clearly steer into the direction of trying to impress a lady friend. And this guy hypothesizes that he's like, it's always the husband or the mysterious lady friend. And, well, ding, 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 it was the mysterious lady friend. So I think that's probably going to make some really good scenes between Elijah Wood and Christina Ricci, and I'm really looking forward to those. And then Misty's also doing double duty, adult Misty, as she discovers that Natalie's been taken as well. And I really liked the scene in the motel with the motel front desk clerk between him and Misty. I thought that was a really great scene, really funny. I love how she just sat down and kind of made this face like, you gonna do something about this? like, yes, I'm gonna annoy the fuck out of you until you do something. Like, the face I thought was really, really good. Moving on to Natalie and Travis. I think this is the last people pairing before I get into the season 2 stuff, and then we'll wrap up. So we should be short of 30 minutes here. I mentioned earlier that Natalie and Travis drank Lottie's little blood tea. Well, it was prior to a search for Javi that has apparently been unfruitful for 2 months. Now, they eventually find a place near a tree that seems to be entirely devoid of snow, or at least has like spots of melted snow, which would seem to suggest that someone was there. We also learned they've been mapping the area, which will likely be useful later. And no, I'll save this for the season 2 stuff. I mean, the prediction stuff. Well, not predictions. The season 2 plot lines that they present in this episode. Present day, Natalie is tied to a bed at Lottie's Looney Tunes retreat, and she escapes because one of Lottie's moronic acolytes unchains one of her arms, gives her a fork, and then reaches across her body to put the chain back on. When she comes back, she deserved to get stabbed. She gets stabbed. Natalie escapes, and while she's running through the woods, she comes on one of the cult's rituals where they seem to be burying a nude man alive. And I wonder if that mirrors something that we're going to see them do in the wilderness later in this season. But right before Natalie is about to bash Lottie's brains in, she says she has a message from Travis. And my first thought was it must be the tell Natalie she's right note. But I'm like, wait, no, Natalie has that note. So then I'm like, well, what message could she have for Travis? Then I'm like, well, she's a fucking witch. Like, maybe she's like Queen Witch now and she could talk to the dead. And she's like, hey, I got a message from Travis from beyond the grave. I don't know what the fuck. So now I'm going to move into some of the stuff that I feel like they set up for this season. One, Shauna's daughter, Callie, digging into and potentially discovering that Shauna killed Adam. She's really obnoxious in this episode. And you know she just wants to be mad for the sake of mad when she says Shauna needs to tell Jeff about Adam. And she's like, Jeff already knows. She's like, how could you do this to Dad? Like what? But I do think that was meant to be played for laughs. Like, the contradiction was very, very evident and obvious. And I think we're supposed to laugh at that. But I didn't like how she dug through the grill ashes and found part of Adam's ID. Like, for one, what would even make her think to do that? Like, just because Jeff made hot dogs, you're like, oh, there must be evidence of a murder in the barbecue grill ashes. Let me dig around. Like, I don't know how you get to a point where you're digging through the barbecue grill ashes. Like, maybe even if there was a scene where Callie observes like they burned like the little tree branch or something. Like, I don't know, but I don't even know what led her to start looking through the grill ashes. And then, of course, for the only preserved part of the ID to be Adam's face. I mean, like, fuck me, man. Like, how many times did this show spit in my face and call me a stupid bitch? Like, that's like the third one. Like, there is no possible fucking way that only the face of an ID is gonna be preserved in ashes almost entirely unscathed. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, y'all better than this, man. Like, come on. Come the fuck on. They probably could have took you 5 additional fucking minutes to come up with a better way for her to find a piece of Adam's ID or to find some kind of evidence that her mother might have killed Adam. You had to 5 fucking minutes. You could have come up with something that doesn't insult me like I'm a fucking child, man. Like that, like, my God, like, just the picture? Like, God damn, Law. Like, y'all really think these viewers are dumb as fuck, right? Like, man, that was insulting. The Adam and Javi thing. I think, you know, we've all hypothesized since like midway through last season. And like, I didn't even talk about it until later in the season. I'd seen it, but it becomes so prevalent that I didn't really discuss it. But the whole thing of Adam being Javi, one, that's going to be the least surprising reveal in probably the history of television, if that's what ends up happening, which all signs do still seem to be pointing that way, but they could still very well subvert those expectations. But I'm interested in that because now, if Adam is Javi, it's interesting that it's going to be, I'm like, the most interesting thing out of this entire episode to me is if Adam is Javi, how did Javi survive 2 months alone in the winter, in the wilderness, by himself? Like, that is the most interesting thing, I think, to come out of this episode. And then that would also explain why Travis will become a believer in whatever Lottie is selling, because if she told him, well, there's no if, she did tell him that Javi was still alive, and then later he finds Javi to be alive, that's of course going to make him really buy into whatever Lottie's selling. So, and then, you know, we already see him being susceptible to it since he drank the fucking blood tea. So, I don't know. There's a lot of setup for Adam being Javi. It would explain why Javi has this like shrine to Shauna in his studio. And like, I doubt he made all those paintings just since the car accident. Like, that's probably stuff he's made for over the course of years, probably because he's obsessed with Shauna, because they even showed this specific scene in the previously on part where Shauna tells Javi to take off when they're in the middle of all the crazy shit they were doing in the finale when they were on shrooms. Like, that kind of like, oh, she helped save me, and the Shauna gave him the notebook and shit earlier. Like, him as a kid, he would be drawn to her because she was nice to him, right? So that would set up the obsession. He'd been making those paintings for all this time. Like, they telegraphed the fuck out of it. If that's revealed to be true, it's going to be terribly unsurprising. But like I said, super interested to see how Javi survived for 2 months. And then lastly, Shauna's baby. What happens to it? Because it can't be Callie, because Callie's too young, I think, to have been born because this is the late 90s. And then, so present day is 2023. Callie a teenager. So Callie is born via presumably her and Jeff after she came back. So what happens to this baby? I'm really interested in what's happening to this baby. Does the baby survive being born or not? And if it does, why didn't it make it out of the woods? Or did it make it out of the woods? Interesting. So that's a lot, man. I know I did a lot here. I know I said a lot. I ranted a bit. I raved a bit. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I will see you guys next week for episode 2. And until then, peace.